Today we have Don Henig. We're very happy to have him. Don's been he's currently a managing director and national sales manager for Mortgage Masters. As you all aware, he's a $6 billion origination. He has 30 years in the business. He's been head of production at many different firms, and he's very well known in the industry and is a leader in the coaching and development side of it. So we're very happy to have him today. Don, why don't you say hello?
Sure. Thanks, Pat. That was very nice. And do me one favor. Please don't show my wife that puppy slide. She's been bugging me.
Yeah, no, I'm actually very much a dog person, so.
Yeah, we are
the
too.
cat people out there, the next time I'll put a cat picture in there. So, Don, why don't you share a little bit? And you've been 30 years. You're currently head of origination. Certainly have seen everything over the years. Why don't you share kind of what you see the great coaches in mortgage banking doing, because that's always a common complaint with managers that they never have time to coach. Why don't you share kind of what you see that works out in the field?
Sure. First off, I'll tell you that listening in today, I thought the presentation was really good. You covered so much. There's not a hell of a lot I can add to that, to be honest with you, because you really covered it very, very well. But I'll give you my personal opinions, and it ties really right into what you were going into. So the best managers that are, not only good at originating but also good at coaching, it all starts with recruiting good, self-sufficient, go-getter type loan officers who you don't have to manage so closely. As you said in that slide, if the poor producers, they're going to be just a drain on your time. They're going to be a drain on the manager's time, on the operations time, on everybody's time. And they need to be on a performance plan and a quick coaching, and either they're going to come up quickly or they're going to be out. And I would say with anybody that's a poor performer, they need to have a personality test done to see how they really, fit. Maybe somebody shouldn't be in a sales profession, but it really all starts for the real successful managers with recruiting the right people up front. And if you have the right team already in place and you make a mistake in hiring, it becomes so obvious. That person sticks out like a sore thumb, and before long, either they're going to go on their own or you're going to cut them loose. So, and those branch managers who build those great teams, they end up making a lot of money, not just on their own production, but also on the branch. And they also, get priority for everything because they're putting deals together quickly. They're, not just them, but their entire team. Everybody knows who they are, and
right.
They treat them accordingly.
Right. Don, the biggest issue that I see when I'm out in the field dealing with originators and managers, the managers are always saying they never have enough time. And so how do you see the good managers addressing this issue? Do they slot it that, each week they're going to allocate the time? I mean, why don't you share a little nitty-gritty stuff with people on the call today about what do you see kind of good managers doing?
Well, again, they get rid of the low performers who are taking their time.
Right.
They're having a weekly meeting with their staff, with their sales staff. They're communicating every week. That forces them to manage. When they're avoiding having a sales meeting, they're not thinking about doing their job, to be honest with you. I think you have to have a sales meeting every week. You have to sometimes have guest speakers. You've got to be training your sales staff up, whether it be with sales training. It could be on training on how to close a deal. How many people in our industry are good at asking questions? So, just thinking about the things that you were talking about, going out in the field and watching somebody, pitch their products, if you will. Well, more importantly than that is to ask a lot of good questions of those realtors, such as, what's working for you? What's not working? Things like that. Go in there prepared to ask 6, 7, 8 questions, and then set up the second meeting with, let me go back, put a presentation together, and come back to you, and set the next date for a 20-minute meeting or a half-hour meeting where you're going to address each of those issues. And, don't just come in and say, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this.
Right.
That's what everybody does.
Don, when you think about it, and one of the things that I've seen good managers do, like every week, maybe Sunday night, they use their Outlook to slot and block time for when coaching's going to happen at the individual originator level. Is that something that you've seen the good managers do?
Well, time management is critical, whether you're a loan officer or a manager, whether you're you or me. You know, I follow a few different things. I try to follow the Gary Keller process from the book The One from Keller Williams. You know, the one thing every day, the one thing this hour. I start every day knowing from the night before that tomorrow there are 3 things that I have to get done, and I keep a list of 3. And those 3 things means if I get those 3 things done, it's a successful day. Now, I'm going to do 300 things, but I have to get those 3 things done. They're staring me in the face, and I've got to get them done. And, you know, more often than not, once you get good at it, those 3 things are done by 10 o'clock in the morning. And you're looking at the next 2 or 3 things to add to the list, and you have an incredibly successful day. So teaching people how to handle time management is critical. One thing staying with that topic, though, with loan officers, is helping them with their time management, such as, you know, what do they do every day? You know, typically a loan officer comes in, I'm going to say, you know, I hate to say it, but probably 90% come in and say, you know, today I'm going to handle my email, then I'm going to, maybe I'm going to go out and visit a realtor. You know, I'm going to call somebody and see if they want to have lunch. You know, I'm going to call some old prospects, things like that, as opposed to saying, on Monday, I'm going to call every realtor I know. I'm going to build up my database of realtors because over the weekend they just had a bunch of open houses. I'm going to call them, friendly call, and say, how's it going today? How was your weekend, Bob? And, you know, it's a friendly call that they're going to say, hey, I had an open house on Saturday, and, you know, we had 12 people there. It was great. Terrific. Who can I help turn into clients for you? Let me pre-qualify a couple of them. You know, you know, what are you doing on Tuesdays? Maybe Tuesday's your status day call where you call every client. Maybe also on Tuesday you're contacting every pre-qual that you have, so that every week you're touching your pre-quals. You should never lose a pre-qual. But my point really is every day should be very clear for a loan officer, and if you're a manager, very clear for the loan officers that you're managing. What are they doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? How many meet and greets are they going to do? How many happy hours are they going to do? If not this month, I'm going to do a happy hour, and next month, none. You know, you should have every month I'm going to do 1 happy hour. Every month I'm going to do 2 lunch and learns, whatever the number is, and everybody's held to it. And when, you know, you're starting the month off, these are the things that you have to do. And you know it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And every day, one of the things I like to do with people is do a power hour. You know, we all know how important it is to work our database for new business. If you do a power hour, literally you can do it every day, but at least a couple times a week. And it's just 1 hour where the entire team is calling their database, not their current clients, but previous clients. They take no incoming calls. Even if somebody they just called calls them back, call them back after the power hour. The power hour's job is to just make outbound calls. If somebody picks you up and you get into a good conversation about referrals and leads and, you know, who they know that is looking to buy a house that you can now refer to your realtors, that's wonderful. But if you're leaving messages, you don't handle emails, you don't handle return phone calls until that hour is over.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's a great point. When you look at it from your experience managing so many different production units, is it better to have a Monday meeting or a Friday meeting? I mean, what do you see kind of works, and obviously, you know, share some of your insights with that.
Everybody has a different perspective on that. I always liked Friday meetings personally. That's just for me. That's what always worked well for me. I like to do an early Friday morning meeting, and not too early. You know, something like 8, 9 o'clock.
Right.
You know, nothing crazy like the military managers. You know, we're going to have a 7 o'clock meeting, and people have kids, people have lives. So I like to also ask my sales staff, what works for you? And in any job I've had, I've always asked my teams, what works for you? I want to know. And more often than not, it surprises me with some answer that I didn't expect. And
Sure.
that's what I have to deal with. I have to work in their schedule, not my schedule.
Right. What also, when you look at it, since you've managed so many sales groups successfully, what, as a senior manager, how do you reinforce that people are doing good coaching? What type of reward system for the actual coaching event? Have you done that, or how has that worked from your experience to make sure that the manager is coaching?
Well, you're never sure sometimes. I wish I could say that we were, but you're really never sure. And there are people that are managers that are just poor managers.
Sure.
But they're great originators, and they have a decent team around them. But nobody on that team is going to go to that manager for a question. It's the way that branch is going to run.
Right.
The vast majority of those of managers and branches do a good job at different levels. So when we have branch manager meetings, so if we have 40, 50 people in a room or on a conference call, it's always great to highlight, here's 2 or 3 or 4 different examples of things that people on the call or in the meeting have done recently that have been very successful. So, I might talk about a recruiting situation where one branch, for instance, they just, recruited so-and-so from this company who's a $30 million producer, and here's the reasons and here's the way they went about it. And, then they also have these 3 other people that they're talking to that are very, very close, and here's the process that they went through. And,
right.
Ask them to speak for a minute. They feel great about it. They want to go out and do it. Everybody else wants to do it.
Sure.
And you're teaching at the same time.
Right. Have you ever actually managed the issue and measured the issue of how many coaching sessions a manager has conducted, let's say, within a month? Have you ever done that?
I haven't.
Do you think that they would be resistant to that, or kind of what's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It's a good question. You'd have to define coaching session. Is it a sales meeting? Is it an individual one-on-one with that loan officer? Is it an email to that loan officer? Is it, bringing in somebody who knows how to close deals to come in and train the team?
Right.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. I think you'd have to define it, and it'd be a pretty broad definition, I think.
Sure, sure. Likewise, with the issue, Don, the people that resist coaching, as we all know, there's originators out there that when the manager is doing a one-on-one coaching session, that employee does not want to be coached. How do you handle that, and usually, what's kind of your recommendation?
It's tough when you have people like that. If they're decent producers or good producers, that's fine. Let them run, unless there's something really wrong, like they're putting in lousy loans and their pull-through is 40%. That
Right.
doesn't work. What I've always done with people with low pull-through, it's really simple. Salespeople are, obviously competitive. And all I've ever done, and it's the easiest thing to do, and I've done it in every business I've run, going back, forever, is create basically a P&L for each loan officer. Easily done. You know what your income per loan is. You just apply it to every loan that they bring in. You apply a cost per loan to the loans that fall out along the way. If it falls out before appraisal, maybe you hit them with 10% of the cost. If it falls out before underwriting, maybe it's a 30% of the cost. If after underwriting, maybe it's a 70% of the cost. If it's clear to close and it falls out, it's 100% of the cost. So it's an easy calculation you can do in an Excel spreadsheet, and it says that this loan officer is worth X amount of dollars to you. So now typically whenever I've done that, and I'm telling you it's the easiest thing to do, whenever I've done that, every single time, the top salespeople typically fall more towards the bottom of the list from a profitability standpoint. And when you start showing that to everybody, that the number 1 guy is now the number 32 guy, they're not going to live with that. They're not happy. You have to sit down and explain the methodology. They all agree with the methodology. It's not going to be over the top, and then they're going to fight very quickly to be number 1 in profitability. It cures the problem. I've seen it. I'm not exaggerating. I've done it many times. And
Right.
every single time, the problem comes through. And it's
Right.
too much.
Don, what about the issue and, prospecting today, certainly I see it with clients when I'm out in the field, is that, many of the originators, even though they've been in the business, our average originator is 52 years old, so they've been in the business for a long time. But when it really comes to prospecting and teaching how to do it, what do you see the best managers doing, and how do they handle those types
Lost you. Well, I lost what you just said there. I'm sorry. I heard you say 52 years old, and then it cut off.
Well, yeah. Well, I didn't mean to name ages, but when you look at managers today are managing a sales staff that the average loan officer is 52 years old, so they've been in the business for a while. And prospecting is obviously needed today, prospecting of referral sources, but a lot of times even the people experienced in the business really don't know how to do it, and certainly our research shows that. So how do you see the best managers when they're teaching the prospecting side of it? How do they do that?
Well, you do have to teach them how to ask a lot of questions as opposed to just going out and just spewing their information. But what I always like to do with loan officers, even the ones that are experienced, is team them up. Get them comfortable as opposed to going out with them and they feel uncomfortable going out with their boss. Team them up with another loan officer. Have them both go out. It's so much easier to go out and visit realtors, builders, financial planners when you have a team. And we're going to do it together. Some calls are great, as we all know, and some calls are horrible, as we all know. But it's a lot easier to walk away from a horrible call when you have somebody next to you saying, wow, that guy was a jerk. And you laugh about it, and you kid about it on the way to the next appointment or the next meeting. And, and that one invariably will normally be much better.
Sure.
So, where a lot of people, after that one going in and getting blown away, they may not go to the next one. They'll find an excuse. It's a little early, but I think I'm going to stop for lunch right now. And, I think I'm going to make some phone calls. I really should be returning these emails as opposed to going and doing what was on their list of things to do, which was visit 10 realtors, for instance. So it's much easier to do it. Today we're doing my territory. Tomorrow it's yours.
Right. Right. That's a good point. That's actually an excellent point. We have some questions, and we're opening up for questions from the attendees today. But, Don, here's a question that one of our attendees asked is, what do you think is the ideal number of originators to managers? What do you think that should look like, and where the manager can be effective?
I think it depends on the type of loan officer you have. If they're really effective loan officers, if they know what they're doing and really professional, the number can be pretty high. But, Harvard Business School has come out with a number many years ago, and I think it's a really good number. You can't effectively manage more than 8 people, and it's really 8 to 12 people effectively manage. So, you always have to be careful of that. But I think if you have some winners that can mentor other people on your team, that's a home run. And you could probably get up to, somewhere around 20, 25 loan officers, I think. I've done that in the past, but you have to have a good amount of real self-sufficient people.
Right. Yeah, I also would say from what I see from a research standpoint is that the number 8 to 12 is really an ideal number. Once you get over 20, you're talking about having to have very experienced people because, so I would agree with that completely.
So as a general rule, 8 to 12 is a solid number. You'll be working hard. They'll be working hard. You can manage it. But again, the goal is to get rid of those low performers who are going to take your time away and replace them with people who are self-sufficient.
No, that's a great point. Actually, I'm going to have to do that as a topic in one of these webinars because too often what I see is people are not doing performance management, and therefore they're wasting their time on the people that are underperformers, and this whole strategy of one more unit per loan officer is foolhardy because if the person is a poor performer, that means they don't have the talent or they're not motivated. So it's one or the other, and no coaching or training is going to actually correct that. So, so the performance management you have a lot more time when you don't have such underperforming people. I mean, no question about that. Don, what do you think, and here's another question that someone asked, you know, the view is, and a lot of times of what you were talking about today, is that the better performer is almost, you know, in a teacher role. So let's say your top performer in your unit, in your branch, do you find them to be helpful with other originators as a whole?
9 times out of 10, yes. Sometimes you get the lone wolf who nobody wants to talk to, and he or she is not helping anybody. That's okay.
Right.
Put them off in an office in the corner, and wish them luck, and stop by and say good morning, good night, and let them do what they do.
Right.
Other people, and I would say the majority, here's the answer really if you think about it. If you ask somebody for help, 9 times out of 10, even a stranger, they're going to help you.
Right.
It's just a key thing in sales. You know, ask somebody for help. If you go to a realtor and say, hey, I need your help, would you be able to refer me to this other realtor? You know, 9 times out of 10, they're going to do it. If they can, they will. Same thing with, you know, just who your good producers are. If you ask them to help, you know, mentor some of these other loan officers, they'll do it as long as it's not taking too much of their time. If another loan officer comes and asks, hey, what do you think of this? They're going to do it. It's human nature.
Yeah, I guess one last question. I mean, I would say certainly what I saw when we looked at the top 100 originators is that many times I think companies don't take advantage of the better originators, you know, being in a role of, you know, a teacher to another originator. A lot of times the premise is that, well, they don't want to do it, and that's really not true when you actually talk to some of the originators. Granted, there are people that don't, but basically, you know, others do. I mean, that's been your experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
and
been also.
Just one other thing, Pat, just going on to one other topic on this is maybe the biggest mistake that I see managers make, and it's an easy one to fix, is they manage volume, if you will. So they're saying to a loan officer, all right, you know, you've got to do $2 million this month, or $1 million this month, whatever the number is that the target is. Well, that's all well and good, but the loan officer doesn't really control that number, especially the poorer producers or the ones in between poor and I think you said strong or steady. Those producers, they don't really control that number, but what they do control, and if you can get them thinking about this is, in my opinion, one of the most important things. How many leads do you need to get to that $1 million? So let's use that as a number. Well, I have, you know, it's going to take me 3 deals to get to $1 million. All right, well, 3 deals is wonderful. And all right, I'm going to go out and get 3 deals. You know, I'm sorry, that's not the way it works. How many leads do you need? Well, you know, a lot of my leads are pre-quals. And, you know, they don't buy today. They might buy next week or next month or 6 months from now or maybe never. So I might need 10 or 12 leads to get to those 3 deals. Okay, let's concentrate on how do you get those 10 to 12 leads, and let's do everything that we have to do to make sure that you're getting 10 to 12 leads, maybe 15, so you guarantee yourself those 3 deals. If you're doing the basics, you're doing the steps every day, you know, constantly, you're going to get those deals. It just happens. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But if you're starting to pressure people on, you have to hit this $1 million number, you have to get those 3 deals, they don't know how to do it. Teach them how to get the leads, and they'll be successful.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And one thing that I would say is certainly, you know, in consulting, what I would tell managers is you're managing activities. That's really what Don's saying. The numbers, the results are a function of activities. And so your role as a manager is to be watching that and certainly managing that the right activities are done. And that's how you get to $2 million. So a lot of times, if you just wait at the end of the month, oh, he didn't make his goal. Well, it's really a function of he didn't do the right activities prior to that. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and certainly it's a concept I see a lot of companies don't really even monitor, to say the least. So I have one last question before we have to wrap it up today. A question was asked: have you seen success with loan officers working in teams and sharing and working leads together, or is it just better successful to see a loan officer just as a separate individual?
It depends on the people. I'll tell you flat out, we have some unbelievably successful teams. And they do a great job, and they support each other, and it doesn't matter which one you're talking to, because they're going to take care of the other one, and they're going to, they do everything together, and they do really, 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 really well, and they support each other. And let's face facts. Anybody that's ever been in sales understands how depressing it can be. It can be tough at times, really tough.
Tough, sure.
Yeah. Let's not minimize that. So when you're working together as a team, it is so much better. I'm going to have a bad day, you're going to pick me up. You're going to have a bad day, I'm going to pick you up, and it works.
Right.
We all need that. I love teams, but it takes a rare individual that can say, all right, well, this month I brought in 10 deals, and you brought in 2. I'm sharing them, and everything's together. Because you have to realize that next month might be the other way around.
Right. Yeah. Well, it certainly ties back to when you're interviewing and deciding who you're hiring. That you look at, there is this group that might work as a team versus just individual loan officers. So, and I think for sure in banks, when you're dealing with originators assigned to bank branches, that's another issue where, the team concept definitely works for sure there. So, Don, I appreciate you did a wonderful job today and all sharing of all your information.